let's get started. So at the beginning, so what I'm going to essentially be doing is I'm going to talk about, where we're at right now at large, where we've gotten to, and I think, what the next steps are. I think right now we have a pretty good formula, I want to say, for, retaining, the people that we have. Clearly getting 300 people to tune in to a final stream is something that's I would say good, I guess. Uh, it's certainly not nothing. It's very notable, and I think if we want to, continue, pushing ourselves out in like the world of esports and all that, we need streams like that, but like constantly. And the way that you do that is by, having more events that are spectacles, stuff that really people can always get into, stuff that's, going to be intense, Uh, that is going to be the goal at the end of the day. And if you can find a way to do that without, if you can find a way to do that, but like frequently without like, taking any shortcuts, I think that's ideal. But what I'm going to talk about today also is what I'm going to talk about today also is just mainly how to get there, an evaluation of our current system, ask why maybe it's crazy because this finals that we just had, I feel like was almost in a sense like the pinnacle, right? This is about as good as it can get, but to really get these moments, I feel like sometimes it is really special just because it is a rarity. But I think if we want that consistent viewership and to get noticed and have these really crazy turnouts and all this kind of stuff and continue to grow, we're going to really need to we're really going to need to increase the quality of our competitions, I would say. And I think there's a way to do that while also making things more inviting for the players that we can get, and also make it something that's more intense up at the top level as well. But anyway, let's get into it in just a second. This will probably take about an hour, just a FYI. VOD will be uploaded to YouTube, of course, as well. But we'll get to that point when we get to that point. D10 is better than D1 right now. It's still going on. It's an overtime game 3. I have my eyes peeled on it. I got a lot of friends over in Trivial Matters. Know Joe Tabe very well. It is a fun match and all of that. So I notice a lot of people are over watching Triv right now as well. So really good day for viewership. But I promised 5 o'clock, so I feel like I should probably get into that. I think it is the last race, though, so I will kind of, keep it up for at least a little bit right now. Maybe missed. Can I introduce myself? That's a great idea, actually. Let's get into it. So, a little bit about me for those that don't know. I don't know if all of you were on the commentary and all that kind of stuff. Well, I'm going to talk about myself for just a minute. So, if you don't know, I was like around at the beginning, like with MKC, me and a team of the current admins created MK Central, right? I started a series on YouTube a little bit before that called the Rook View, where I talked about, the state of the community and like the problems and what I would do to fix it. And a lot of those ideas actually went into the development of MKC. We, around that time, ended up founding the site. And at the time, it was a very ambitious project, that took aim at some of the community problems. A lot of those being like, the lack of motivation, or the community being smaller than what we thought it was. It not growing but going opposite as well. And I believe that there have been some problems in the future that actually have been averted because we have had some good foresight on things. Now, obviously, things are not perfect, but that's part of the job, right? Thinking ahead and thinking about what could go wrong, what could we do to, get better, increase our numbers and everything. Because when I think of the community right now, I see something that is a little bit of a sleeping giant. This is, a game that everybody has, a game that a lot of people love, but they don't, there's a lot of viewership for it on YouTube and stuff also, but for some reason, I don't think that we're marketing ourselves in like the way that may be ideal. So, today I want to talk about what I think is the next challenge. All right, see you, Tynan. I want to talk about the next challenge. Uh, Shit, forgot about that. I don't know if I'm going to be doing like the stream rewards things, but yeah. I want to talk about the next issue. We have been seeing some prize pools and all that kind of stuff. We'll get to the prize pools in a little bit. So what you guys are probably asking right now, why a slideshow, right? Why am I doing a slideshow for 300 people here? I don't want this to be extra, but I think that what we're talking about today is something that's not really inherently obvious. I think that it's important to understand like where I'm coming from on this because, before I can really go into detail about why I want to do this, I think it's important that people understand it. I would say that right now we're having like a unique opportunity in the form of renewed interest in the game outside of our scene, and I don't want us to waste it. So I want to talk about, creating something new for everybody else. So quick recap. I'm going to try to be pretty brief because I know one thing that the community does lack is sometimes patience in reading stuff. So you guys don't have to look at the screen if you don't want to. I'll cover everything as quick as possible. So right now, our current format is pretty much Lounge and MKU. Now, there's a little bit of extra stuff that happens on occasion. Sometimes we'll host like FFA tournaments. You all know JP Givener's been running the Free Spirit Gaming. The LAN scene's been kind of popping off. But as far as online competition goes and all of that, we've been mainly focused on the following. And this is because this is what is really easy. It allows, Lounge allows people to play all their Mogi formats. MKU allows people to play their 6v6s. It allows people to, play with their friends. MKU Lounge is accessible at any time. But I think the key on both of these is that all the matches in these are designed to be pretty close. In MKU, you have your divisions. Lounge, you have your tiers. It makes it so nobody feels truly overwhelmed. And I think this is proven to be a working formula. As far as the website, being deceased and all that kind of stuff, it is a little bit out of our hands right now, unfortunately, because Jazzy has not really been online and all of that, but we are working on it. Anyways, both these allow for, decent variety of different play styles. Doesn't necessarily feel like a waste of time and all of that. So I kind of want to talk about weaknesses of both. I know a lot of you are not big Lounge fans. Some of you are. Some are very big fans of it. But I think one of the things about Lounge is that while it does act like as a great solo queue system, matches sometimes are rarely memorable, except to some of the players in them, if it's like a promotion match or something like that. There's effectively infinite Lounge matches, and as a result, we're not really, focusing in on any of them. Like what just happened with MKU wouldn't happen in the Lounge, unless it's like, just like Kusan's regular stream and all of that. Yeah, I mean, it's a solo queue at the end of the day, and it's a damn good solo queue. But at the same time, it's like, I don't think anybody remembers, well, I see Vantox in chat, I don't think anybody remembers, like, the specific Lounge match that happened to Vantox last week, and a lot of that's just because, you can play whenever you want, so nothing really feels truly ever important. Okay, so the MMR system is also, built off of recency bias. And I think while these rankings are roughly accurate, fluctuations also always going to occur based on, your last 10 events. This leads to, a sense of importance ahead of every match. I think that's also what makes people, get very tilted by it. Realistically, if you're on a losing streak, you're probably going to be lower than normal. If you're on a winning streak, you're probably going to be higher than normal. Okay. This is not necessarily a bad thing because, it promotes activity and a desire to improve, which I think is important. But at the same time, I think that we dedicate a large amount of importance to MMR, considering how much it fluctuates. I'd say achievement for Lounge players are, temporary, and nobody outside the lobby really has, a focus on the match and all that kind of stuff. And I would say that Lounge is not really a great spectator event. It's something that sometimes you pull up on a stream just because you're hanging out, but you aren't really emotionally attached to it, right? Lounge isn't for everybody, as mentioned, because we have, there is this attached importance to your MMR. And I think this frequently brings out the worst in people. And I think this is also what's scaring some players off from doing it. Yeah, Lounge is only an amazing spectator event when it makes somebody lose their mind and sanity, yes. But While losing in tournaments feels like a lack of progress, lounge losses kind of result in you like negative progress because people like rage because they're losing MMR actively. You kind of go back to -1. Yeah, Teo, Mars playing lounge. Very entertaining. But because these lounge matches have a higher degree of variance due to the more importance being attached to the individual players, this variance in losing make for a deadly combination leads to a lot of toxicity, I would say. Uh, this again is also further escalated by the people that are yelling, "Why did you throw a red?" and all that kind of stuff. The things that affect 2 players in the room instead of all 12. But yeah, I think it's bad if we treat lounge as the only valid form of solo competition and achievement. But I think we should want to prioritize other approaches, right? So I want to talk about MKU also right now. So MKU doesn't really act as the promotion and relegation system that I think it was initially designed for. This is largely because there's a lot of player movement in between seasons, and that kind of prevents teams from it's like, oh, you won D10, well, you're in D9 now, but that may not be true if you lose like your best player and all that kind of stuff. Pretty much every season, there's a lot of player movement in between seasons, and teams have a very limited variety of opponents, I would say. Long runtime for MKU seasons, it creates way too much gain and loss over a seeding and all that kind of stuff. If you remember, last season with TX and RK, both of them were in Division 2. They just won Division 1, and they didn't really get a chance to play it last season, and I don't think that's necessarily a good thing also. And the other thing that I also am kind of worried about as well is that losing at times can kind of be seen as a shortcut. And I think the good news is that teams are wanting to be moved up instead of down in the seedings, but complacency can be rewarded technically. Like if you have a bad season, you get to play an easier set of opponents next season. So at the end of the day, everybody's kind of roughly expected to win every 8 seasons. Appreciate stuff. But it can be rewarded at times, and we have to, kind of consider that. I think what this means is that the community doesn't naturally push players to challenge themselves. And I think the most obvious evidence of this effect lies in the war chat, as teams strictly search for wars on a by division basis. And given this setup, I would say that this makes complete sense, because there's no reason to practice for situations you won't ever encounter in league play. And I wouldn't advise any team to change up their ways either, given the current setup. What this results, though, is, and despite there being over 150 active teams in the community, many teams end up playing the same set of opponents almost exclusively, and despite there being a very large community, I don't think that we really experience the perks of that. Many 6v6 players prefer teams, I would say, because it is more chill than the lounge type of environment, understandably. I don't know if this necessarily forces people to, think about, oh, do we want to win? Well, we need to, try to improve and all of that. Yeah, we're not going to make players sign contracts. That'd be ridiculous. Let's be realistic here. But anyways, I think the issue with MKU isn't that it isn't fun and that it isn't good, because I think it's amazing for a casual audience. And as you all know, it's important to a lot of people. I think that can't be in question. But I do think that it is worth noting that it can sometimes, be rewarding of players that, don't really want to do anything except come and play MKU on Sundays. And while that's not necessarily a bad thing, I think we should consider, having other alternatives in the future. I think it's worth noting also that casual play, yeah, thanks, Bryce. I think what should be noted is that casual play is still a great thing for the community, and that makes MKU a strength for us. But I think other competitive avenues should be explored pretty much. I will memorize. Okay, let's chill, everybody. All right, so yeah, this isn't a problem. It does an excellent job, I think, of inviting new players into the community, and ones that want to stick around to play with their friends and all of that. I think we likely need more solo tournament alternatives, though, that give off the same vibe. However, I think we're advertising MKU as maybe potentially more than what it's setting out to achieve right now. So let's talk about, I guess, what has happened over, a long amount of time, I would say. after nearly a decade of this, I kind of have doubts about what MKU will bring us in the future that we don't already have. And what we already have should be maintained. But as mentioned, I think, this is going to be part of the proposal, exploring other options and all of that. So all suggestions I bring forward in the rest of the slideshow will be focused on complementing MKU in the lounge and not replacing them. Please keep that in mind. Most main competitions for other esports, though, would never incentivize any sort of losing in any way. And I understand, I think most MKU teams' heart is in the right place, right? You want to continue to move up divisions over time. But the league itself does not necessarily promote that. So let's talk about other tournaments. Now, is Frontier strictly a more competitive tournament? I think the answer may be yes, but I don't think that is the solution for us. Now, you could make the case that tournaments where anyone has a shot to win would be better to, introduce cash prizes in the world of esports into. And that's because everybody has a path to win it all, right? While this is true, I don't think it's necessarily the move, though. So there are some flaws to, our typical brackets that we've tried running in the past. The tournaments get less attendance, for sure. It's the same set of teams, all the same teams that are eligible for MKU can play Frontier also. I think it's hard for people to get behind a tournament, though, if first place or, a cash prize is effectively inaccessible to them. So people have got to compete out of a desire to test themselves in these settings. So I don't think that buy-in 6v6s are super viable, because if you introduce money into 6v6 tournaments, I don't think that enough people are going to be able to reap the benefits of it. I think it's just going to be, a system where the top X% do all the winning. So nobody's going to want to, put down their own money if they can't get anything back from it. The biggest issue, though, is not even this format or MKU, but I think the team structure that we have, because I don't know if we can make money work in any team format as it is. So yeah. Let's talk about things that are cool when they happen. We want to see teams climb. We want to see them improve, progress the meta, and we want to see good mentality rewarded. We want our game to be accessible. We want our game's competitions to be validated. I would argue that, the most hyped tournament run in the history of the game came from Inflow, or Inkling Feet, as you all know, back in Amplify 6, because, they did something unexpected. Unfortunately, Tynan's no longer here. He can't see it, but it was a very cool thing. Now, we just saw another really cool one also. It happens, but it is kind of rare. The last few seasons, there we have seen, a bit of a, variety on who's winning Division 1 since the World Friend era, but it can be kind of rare. So I'd say that the main benefit in how we have things right now, and what is important, is that this MKU system allows players to play with teammates that they specifically choose and vibe with, right? But there are a few negatives that come with this. I would say that includes, roster turnover that often prevents teams from climbing the ranks. I think that sometimes the community is not as social because, we are divided into these groups that people primarily stick to. And unfortunately, if you do have some of these groups, it can be a great place, for toxicity to brew under unfortunate circumstances because, what happens in that chat stays in that chat, and nobody's really going to ever, commentate on that except the people in the chat. I think it's worth noting also that it's harder to schedule tournaments for entire teams than single players. And I would say that it's also kind of intimidating for new players joining the community if they don't have a team. Like, they join the community and they feel like they can't really do anything at all because they're not in a team, so they just kind of don't know what to do, and maybe they join Lounge, and if a Lounge match doesn't go well because they're new, a lot of players get mad at them. And that's just a realistic thing that I think we have to acknowledge. It's not the easiest thing for players to just hop in and immediately be able to participate in something. And like mentioned earlier, I think a lot of players don't really see a future where we can actually market 6v6 in the world of esports because there's so much imbalance between Division 1 and the rest of the community. So, here's the other thing. Sometimes there is improvement. Sometimes you see the success stories like, RK recently that were like in the bottom division of Prime League, just won MKU for the first time today. Sometimes teams do take all the right steps towards improvement, though, and sometimes it doesn't necessarily guarantee anything. Sometimes there's stronger players on rosters that can outpace, their teammates, even if their teammates are trying really hard to keep up. It's harder for full teams to climb the ranks than single players. Strong players in lower divisions often get noticed by those in higher divisions and eventually get offers to move teams if higher level teams think that they can help them. And this option of just recruiting over just like training together is almost like a shortcut in a sense for both the recruiting party and the player that decides to switch teams. And this kind of feels like an endless cycle. The way to dodge this, I think, is exceptionally good team culture, but that's not always how the story goes. So this was season 4. That was 14 seasons ago. We see our Division 1 champion here at the bottom. We see season 18 playoff teams in 3rd and 5th place as well. Zealous was just recently in the playoffs. Severance almost came back and would have been Division 1 if they came back. And a lot of players on Team JBZZ just played in the finals as well. And what this is telling me is that if you're at the top already, it's easier to stay at the top. And I think just seeing so many familiar faces, years ago, I'm liking the Team JBZZ reps in the chat right now, seeing all you turned out, appreciate y'all. But despite so many new players coming in over the years, the earlier divisions, they look very similar to what the modern day is as well. Anyways, question. Why is improvement even important and necessary to promote in the future? Well, player improvement is what causes changes in the results over time. And the idea of this is what motivates players to keep coming back when they aren't winning, so they eventually can. It can sell people on the cusp of joining, on the idea of becoming better at their game and, joining the community as a result. And, improvement starts, to give players a belief that they can achieve more. And it makes getting to the top feel accessible. It pushes the game forward. And when players of any skill level care enough to get better, our competitions are validated. And this is necessary, I think, if we want our team to take the next step. Thanks, Fire. There's a lot of people right here, but luckily, people are sticking around so far. So another question. Have you ever posted an achievement or, cool in-game clip that you felt was under-recognized? And I would say that the answer is probably. I know there's a lot of, viral clips that happen on Twitter and all of that, and it's kind of, and they pop off, and everybody's like, oh, I could have done that. I'm a professional player and stuff, but it just doesn't happen, right? Look, if we want people to care on the outside, we need to have a reason for people to do so. And this all has to do with the idea of our competitions gaining validity. If you want evidence, well, I think the game isn't actually taken as seriously out west than it is in Japan. But, Kusan's success on social media is mind-blowing. And that has everything to do with, what can happen when talent meets a caring audience. We just have to find a way to get to that point where people on the outside are looking in at our events being like, oh, this is kind of cool. And if we're only getting, these, streams and viral clips that happen every so often, it becomes more difficult to do that. Now, I've attended, in-person Mario Kart events long ago where I'm literally the only good player. And when I go there, and not recently by any means, it's definitely things have come along and all of that. But when I win, I don't really feel accomplished at those events because if I'm the only one there that cares, well, I didn't really do anything. I don't really, you just feel like a nerd sitting there, right? Where it's like, oh yeah, I just beat you at this game and all that, and just nobody else is even pressing the R button and drifting, right? However, when there's legitimate competition at these, events and others reciprocate your feelings toward the game, that's when these faults start to disappear. What's going on in the chat right here? Guys, we're not. I know you all are talking about the viral tweet last week. That's not the only thing I'm talking about. There's a lot of there's a lot of people out there. It's crazy things happen, but it doesn't seem super noticed, right? Yeah, I mean exactly like with Zach. If Bear, for instance, was the first competitive player you noticed, this is because you had a reason to care about what he posted and all that stuff. So if more people were a part of that cycle, then that'd be crazy, right? More people would see stuff and more people would want to be a part of it. So our goal as a community needs to turn into, making people care about what happens in the community, right? When we have competitions that people on the inside care about and feel strongly about, that's when we're going to have our best streams and moments, and that's when people are going to want to get a part of it. Now, MKC itself already has some validity because we have, so many players that are, pushing the game forward. We just saw an incredible finals, but I think we still have a way to go. I want us to get thousands of people on final streams. I don't want to settle for just 300. It was awesome what happened today. We can do more. So, can we market free-for-all tournaments? Well, there's work to do in this regard. Now, due to the variability of these FFAs, many believe that, they're the key to entertaining streams. I've talked to John a lot about this, and he believes this wholeheartedly. There are some issues with this, though. But to reiterate, I think the reason why people like FFA streams so much is because you never know who's going to win. And there's some issues, right? Summit is kind of completely overtaken, our normal afternoon FFAs. And I don't think that's ideal, right? One of the only recovery options I see, are the plethora of cash prize tournaments that are appearing. I think that we need to find a way to make those tournaments more prestigious, right? Get those commentary, motivate all the top players to want to play and all of that. And along with this, we need to make sure that we can have these tournaments, be something that anybody feels comfortable joining with. Bengals record prediction, 13-4. All right. More importantly, these free-for-alls, unlike MKU, are not newcomer-friendly, and we need to solve that. This is because round 1 is 8 races, and half the players get eliminated after round 1. This means that half the people that join our tournaments get beat, and it's over immediately. Many of the new players get destroyed, and many of them will never try another one. And every time that happens, that's one person that could, be a long-time community member that will not be. And players don't really seem to care about who wins these tournaments a ton yet. There's comments like, oh yeah, this person won, cool. But I feel like in that last match that we just had half hour ago, people did care, right? But we need to do better. We need to, repeat that. So I know a lot of you guys watch Melee, probably. Not all of you. But this is a very, what are we talking about right here? Okay. So there's a few important things to note right here in this slide. I think that, so Melee, we got Super Smash Bros. Melee, very notorious competitive Nintendo game. The biggest we have. Look at this crowd in the background. That's a lot of people. These people in this crowd flew out to a tournament, most likely, to watch and participate in an event. These guys are all watching two of the greatest players in the world play this game because all these people in the crowd care about who is going to win this tournament and make their claim of being the best player in the world. And I think that's important. As a successful game, as a successful competitive game, you need these kind of storylines if you're going to make anything about it. Because if you can get all these people that are willing to travel to watch two players play, that's when people care. That's when thousands of people start tuning in on Twitch, and that's when your game starts getting more opportunities. When money comes into the equation, when people can start streaming, when people can start really putting effort into creating better tournaments because they feel like their effort is worth it. When is the IF documentary? Maybe one day if we got a bunch of people who care. All right. So for all my NFL enjoyers, I've seen a few things. This was a presser quote right here. The greatest thing about sports is that, they have meaning. They have consequences. You play to win the game. You don't play to just play it. Jamar Chase is a top 3 receiver, yes. So I think the point is that we need to start making our competitions feel like they matter. We need people to play for a purpose, right? We don't want people to just queue up for their 12th lounge in the day. No offense to the few of you that do that. I understand that you like playing. It doesn't matter. But a lot of times what happens is, people just play this endless cycle where they're in the same 2,000 MMR range and they're playing and they just want to get that high of a win streak, right? And I think the cool thing about, actual tournaments is that, they have consequences that last. So why do we compete? I think most of us really like the game, so we just want to play it. But when you sign up for a competition, guys, Vantox is one of many. I know he's more popular than most streamers and stuff, so it's an easy target. But there's a lot of people that play Lounge all day. It's not just, let's be realistic here. Oh my gosh, what's happening right now? Oh my gosh, guys, chill out. Let's go RK. I can't even appreciate you all for the chat and all of that. I guess I'll take a quick break. Thank you all. Congratulations to RK. Oh my god, what's happening right now? Did we get raided by Sliver? That's like the only thing that could have possibly happened. What is going on right now? Thank you all for the... Sliver, thank you for the raid of 562 people. Oh my goodness. Thank you all for joining. I don't expect all of you guys to say, but we're talking about the future of the community right now. Again, big congratulations to RK for winning. If you all didn't see the MKU final stream, watch it on MKC later. We had a hell of a cast. Came down to the very last race. Congratulations again, guys. Shout out to Bree, or BRE, for, giving us a show as well. But I'm really happy for you guys, kind of get in the winner circle finally. You guys are the bros. So appreciate you all. We're going to get back to the stream in just a second, but I guess we're doing a little bit mini RK celebration. How are we in an emote-only chat? I didn't do anything. Which mod did this? Sliver, I was going to raid you in a little bit also, congratulate you all and all that kind of stuff. But thank you all for, thank you Sliver for the raid. Congratulations to you guys. It's been amazing seeing your journey, coming from the bottom divisions of the Prime League, Rainbow of Cards era, all the way to, Division 1 champions over in MKU. It's cool to see the climbs. We got to do it also in HD. World Friend got to do it. PL teams have been feasting the last few seasons, dude. So appreciate you all. Glad that all of RK and its fans got a big, spectacular victory. That's really crazy, and it's really spectacular to see. I'm glad that all of you guys are very excited and hopping over here. I know a lot of you guys are Spanish speaking. I have no idea what I'm even saying, but thank you regardless. Gracias. Can't forget the Chilean players also. Engel, he's my guy. One of my favorite players, as we know. I said that at the beginning of the stream. Again, shout out to Sabas also for giving us a perspective also. It wouldn't have been possible without you guys, so I'm really glad that we got to view the RK perspective on all of it, right? All right. Sorry, everybody that's been waiting here. We've been doing the... Appreciate it, Mickler. You all understand? Please continue. Yeah, we will continue the TED Talk, yes. So thank you all for that. Can't believe it. All right. I know. Appreciate all of you guys. All right, let's get back to the TED Talk. All right. So why do we compete, right? Yeah, I know a lot of players are, but I'm stupid. I'm like you guys. I only know English. I know some words in Spanish, but the education system failed me. I can't speak Spanish worth a shit, despite taking it like 5 years in school. It was not good. Thank you all. But anyways, we play to win the game right here. This is why RK is so excited right now, because they did win the game. That tournament had meaning to them. And we need to continue replicating that feeling, right? Sometimes I do feel that we do play to just play, right? That mindset is going to hold us back. This is why we settled for the lounge, I think, because it's easy and it's addicting. And it never really has true stakes outside of the moment, right? It never has anything lasting that people are really working for and all of that. So I think we could do something much more interesting, but people must be willing to try new things. I know there's a possibility that, people like the system as is. So as a result, I think, people may not want changes and stuff like that. Again, like I've mentioned for all the new people, these changes that I will discuss in a minute will be like a complement to MKU and Lounge also. No replacing, strictly a complement, something that I want to do on Saturdays. So, anyways, let's keep it going. So, we have an obsession with rankings as people. Trust me. Whenever I make like a tier list or something on Twitter, you all come after me, right? I got into an argument over Ribbon Road this morning. Everybody's calling my opinions trash. I've been personally attacked by Arcadia every day of the week because my teammates like Mario Kart Stadium and I hate Animal Crossing. But we as gamers love attaching importance to things like results, MMR, predictions, tier lists, awards, divisions, power rankings, you name it. Awoken, I think in an ideal setting, this stuff should happen for 200L as well. Now, timing is going to be logistically difficult, right? But, we can figure it out. And I think it's worth taking that risk, right? Now, let's go over some of the things that have happened in the past because everybody's obsessed with rankings. We've had 3-hour prediction streams going through all the players on our roster. Anybody who remembers the MK Boards era with the CSL streams, they would predict for 3 hours who was going to win every division, talk about every team. You know how it is, right? I've seen grown adults wanting about Smash Bros. Power rankings on Twitter. I've seen massive egos being toxic to people over children's game, rating points, MMR. And as you all in the chat have noticed, hundreds of people used to hover over results threads of a big MKU set, or an upset. A bunch of you remember ARD1, what the fuck. Nobody saw it coming, so when it happened, everybody's like, oh, I gotta get in on the drama, right? Everybody's obsessed with this stuff. That somebody, who lost, who won, right? Yeah, it's been a while. That was another one. See, Up back there, Play, currently with AR. We remember that. It was crazy. And of course, he's also seen multiple attempts of mimicking the Panda Global rankings with suspect at best metrics. So the question is, can a consistent grading scale actually exist? Maybe, maybe not. Anyways, my hot take is that outside of, toxicity, caring about these things is a good thing. Because when we care, we have a reason to want to improve. We have a reason to want more. Yeah, I remember WCL with Bash and staff. Crazy times. Anyways, question. Who is the best player in the world? And who is our greatest of all time? Is it Mango? Is it Armada? Is it Messi? Ronaldo? Is it MJ? Jordan? LeBron? Wilt Chamberlain? Who is the best on our side even? Right? Seeing a bunch of people saying me, right? Who's the best? Who is it? Yeah, that'd be funny, Bryce. Tatum. Russell Westbrook the GOAT. We got to vote for Westbrook in here? But anyways, my question is, have we ever truly asked this question in the Mario Kart community? Have we? Now, we might have some answers pop up. I see all of you guys were very quick to, point it out what your personal answer is. But we never really have events specifically geared toward answering these questions. We just have our own opinions. Anthony Bennett. Yeah, I don't know about Anthony Bennett. We don't have these discussions in our community because our main competitions frequently feature all the best players in the world usually playing together rather than against each other. And, to be the best, you've got to beat the best. And perhaps if we had a very unpredictable tournament series that focused on the top players competing for the title of the best, we could shift away from results that are expected and start changing the narrative. Because when things differ, there's a reason to care. Now, I think what made today so special with MKU, and this is nothing against BRE, because, they were the champions, right? Widely considered the best. A lot of the best players in the world on that team. I think what made today special is that there was a change that was unexpected. RK did overcome and did get their first title, right? But despite that, the top 4 seeds all made the playoffs, right? Last season, the best team took care of business. This has happened for a while. We want unpredictability, but we don't want it to come out of sacrifice of our tournaments in general and their validity. Look, MKU's effectively ran 15 years ago. We've talked about WCL and all the like. We kind of know what it is and what it isn't. There's been an overwhelming favorite nearly every single season since Season 9, and I don't think that this is by a fluke. This is by design. We saw the Season 4 image earlier in the stream that had all the same teams for the most part. Now, we've had our upsets on occasion, and they're the best days ever, right? But I think most people, we want it so, the poll on MKC, right? We want it to be so, like we want it so there's more, like, we don't want, everybody thinking the same team's going to win. We want it to be roughly 50-50, right? We want one crowd of people saying, no, this guy is totally better than this guy, right? Because these discussions make us care. And if we can do that, yeah, pull MKC. That's a good point of view. The thing is, we need objectivity, Vantox, not subjectivity, which was pull MKC. We don't want, community perception shaping who the best player is. We want strict results. Now, I saw Shy Guy wrote in the chat. I'm sorry, I can't get to every message, guys, but I saw Shy Guy wrote in the chat. It's impossible to get a best player because, there's, too much going on and all that kind of stuff. And I would disagree. Now, I would say that there definitely is an RNG factor to this, right? FFAs, we know, notoriously do have a lot of, crazy outcomes that we aren't expecting and all of that. And clan tournaments are a little bit more, consistent and all of that. But I want to be clear. It's a good thing that the best teams win our tournaments, and we should want that. However, it does nothing for the community when the results are frequently seen as a foregone conclusion. When we have the same teams over and over again making the playoffs, right? Yeah. Now, I think that you can build your games around RNG enough to have, legitimate champions and all that stuff. It's just you never want something to be decided by one thing. You want it to be over the course of something, right? I agree, Season, that that smaller achievements should be celebrated, right? But what if, we could make it so that there was more, motivation for players to, compete for a title or something without us, doing something that would sacrifice the integrity of competition. Now, if accolades are strictly based on team success, there's no reason to ever challenge yourself. If you're like a good player on a good team, why would you play with other people? Because you could just win if you, stay put where you're at, right? But if you do want to be the best, I don't think it's reasonable that you can team up with the current best player to do so. Because if you guys both win, you're both, your stock goes up evenly. But theirs was ahead to begin with. Now, some players, they may be reliant on their teammates to win tournaments. Some people may get carried. I was a good example of that back in the day. Some players might rise to the occasion and prove themselves without a ton of help, though. Now, perhaps being in a top-tier team should not be a requirement for proving that you're the best in the game. But we're kind of in a situation right now where MKU, that proves all. So if you're not in the top MKU teams, it's hard to, prove yourself as like a potential best, because it's just assumed that the best are always in the top teams. I think it would be ideal if players could still prove to be the best in the world without feeling like they must leave their team to have a chance to prove it. There's a lot of Kevin Durant's in this community, yes. But the system has incentivized it to be that way, though. Yeah, Kevin Durant, the hardest road. So let's go over everything that's been discussed up to this point, and then we're going to do the proposal. Now, solo racer events are not in a great place right now. This is because newcomers kind of have a rough time in our tournaments, and their runs end quickly. Summit FFAs, they've kind of taken away from the prestige that the afternoon FFAs used to hold. And the rate of participation has fallen since 8U. And what I mean by that is our tournaments are bigger than they were back in the Wii U days, but they're not proportionally as big as they should be given how much the community has grown. We want to change that. And additionally, Lounge can be a hostile environment due to the ego that stems from the MMR system. Now, our current team events don't really incentivize improvement as well. This is because divisional structure means that losing will give you easier opponents the next season. So eventually everybody will win at one point as long as they keep playing. And the question is it really earned in this way? Recruitment is often seen as a faster and easier path to team improvement than, actually, trying to improve yourself on the course, And individuals may feel that their personal improvement doesn't have a ton of control on the outcome of 6v6 matches. And that makes searching for the easier teams, or being a Kevin Durant, as you all are pointing out, that makes it easier to do. Now, considering so many people leave, to pursue, easier times winning and, being at the top, this makes team building for, the teams that are below more difficult. It's really hard to have those runs from the bottom to the top. Improvement, I would say, is too difficult to monitor and understand how to do. This is because, only the top half of players in free-for-alls advance. So if you want to actually feel progression in tournaments, you have to go from being new to above average. And that's very big. And like mentioned, it's hard to feel personal improvement in 6v6s. And I don't think that there's enough guides right now, or avenues for help out there. And even mid-level play can feel inaccessible, and strong players can feel unapproachable at times. And I think that the existence of low division war chats suggests that there may be some hostility and mistrust between, higher division teams and low division teams at times. And like Season mentioned, we don't celebrate smaller achievements enough as well. Smaller achievements are important, and we want those achievements to be easier to highlight, I think. Next thing, I don't think that we're as social as inviting as we could be. And this is because players don't really interact outside of their teams that much, or with people from different backgrounds. Now, a lot of players out there would be interested in joining the community if it was a bit more laid back or a bit more friendly. There's a lot of claims that there's a lot of, toxicity out there. We don't want that. And some people, unfortunately, need incentive to, treat people better. Now, we've made a lot of progress in this regard, I think, in the last few years, but I still want to continue to get better, right? That should be the goal. There's no exam, don't worry. Only feedback will be taken. If any of you guys want to DM me when this is all said and over what your thoughts are, go ahead. There's probably going to be a lot, so I may not get back to you immediately, but let me know what you think. Anyways, we've also effectively made solo queue or lounge which is one of the most robotic parts of any esport community. Let's just be realistic here. That is like the largest focus we have on assessing player ability right now. Finally, we talked about this at the beginning. Twitch viewership numbers aren't particularly great given how many people use MKC right now. Now, today's kind of an exception, right? We got a lot of people online right now. But there's not a ton of excitement in terms of results and storylines. Today was the exception, right? Often final streams feature the same teams and players repeatedly. We did see that today, but today's result was a little bit different. I think that's what made it exciting. I don't think that we're producing many viral clips from our own community. We need people to want to step up and capture those moments more as well. And an easy way to do that is if we have high stakes matches that people are in, the Electrodrome Race 36 moments where it's like, oh, Angel had a shroom and a horn, right? But anyways, we don't have enough partnerships and people that find us interesting yet. Now, 66 is the most popular format in the Western community, at least, believed to be the most skill-based. However, it's hard to envision it in its current state taking off as an esport with money involved, with a bunch of money invested into it. Now, this is a decent amount of issues that we've kind of, talked about. I think I've summed up what our goals should be in the future and all of that. Well, this is the time where I propose how I would want to go about solving a lot of these issues. Yeah. All right. Let's get into it. Now, shout out to Trash from France. He's a great graphic artist. This is my proposal, and it would be called the Central Rank. And a lot of this is going to be about, talking about that discussion of, the best players and, kind of, wanting to have tournaments that have a purpose at the end of them, right? This is the name of the proposal, right? Trash is the best, guys. Everybody follow Trash on Twitter if you can find him. He is just the best. So shout outs Trash. All right. The Central Rank. We will be calling this TCR for the rest of the presentation. Okay? TCR would be a ranking that seeks to find an objective answer to who the best in the world is. The ranking will strictly take events into account that are labeled under the TCR name, somewhat like a circuit. And these events would be strictly tournaments with a defined winner, and there would be some variety in event types. This would specifically be built to run alongside MKU on Saturdays. I understand there's a lot of 200cc players. We're going to have to, figure out a way to, balance everything if this is done, if this approach is taken. But if it is successful, 200cc, MK Tour, other communities, they could, consider something like this if it were to be successful, right? Evaluation periods would be for a full calendar year, but maybe half if deemed too long. And every single event in the TCR, every TCR event that would It would be evaluated in the ranking, all of them. And every player that signs up will obtain a score for every event that they participate in. Goals. TCR events would be to be fine-tuned to be as competitive and fair as possible, while always incentivizing players to do their absolute best. This means that there would be no gain for, losing at any point in time, but it would be more possible to win in some form or fashion in it, or monitor your own progress. Events would be specifically made with new players in mind as well. A major goal is to get players of all levels to want to push themselves to their limits. This means, actually practicing on their own time, finding ways to get better, looking up tutorials, talking with better players, right? There would be multiple event types also to keep things fresh. I know we've done circuits in the past that maybe weren't so fresh. This I want to change. So here's what I would want to include. Second chance FFAs, as in things that are similar to double elimination. We'll talk about that more in just a minute. Competitive 6v6 tournaments. Yes, I want to have a solo player ranking with 6v6 tournaments involved. This will be probably the most difficult thing to explain, but we'll get to that in a second. Late season Arcadians, so the top X people on the ranked band, so we can put the spotlight on people that don't always get the spotlight. And also invitational summits, like the Smash kind, not our kind, maybe at the end of like some kind of season, you get like the 12 best players, put them in a room, and test them in multiple different formats and all that kind of stuff. It could be, big stream event, right, with all the best players, right? Anyways, all events are either open to the public or to be earned through public events, right? If you want to be in the room with all the best players, then you can earn it, right, through your own, rank all 25, Anyways, TCR would also be focused on building a narrative. So we've done some formally attempted player rankings. I don't know who actually remembers the 8U rankings in the past, back from 2016. A few of the top players and top teams made it. They quickly decided that free-for-alls do not tell the whole story and that wars must be accounted for when thinking about player skill. But as a result, no clear criteria was established and rankings were subjective. People were kind of like, oh yeah, I think that this player's better, right? This player's better than this player. This guy's about this. It was subjective. Of course, there's the cart clash ranking also. Knight a few years ago tried to, do an official kind of ranking, right? That was based on an actual defined criteria and scoring system. That made the rankings objective. However, because of the way that, all the tournaments that were considered for that event rarely featured overlap with each other. This made actually comparing one local scene to another local scene quite difficult, and as a result, the data points were not really fully defined between each other. It was hard to actually compare players from one region to another region. And as such, certain tournaments, obtained a large bias propping up their winners, resulting in some nonsensical rankings. So the goal here for TCR is to take the best of both worlds. So if you all remember, I was largely in charge of, getting these solo circuits in the past. We did not have one this year. We broke the trend of every 3 years. But I think the biggest issues with them were the repetitive feeling, and bad RNG could really tank your standing, right? You get hit once, you have a bad 8-race session, and a top player just got 57th out of 75, right? I barely remember that, T. And also, they weren't really newcomer friendly, like most of our free-for-all tournaments. Ideally, we want to space out tournaments better, offer more variety over your traditional free-for-all, and additionally speaking, we want to find a way to make circuit rankings more focused on skill, while also, having helping new players as well. Yeah, I remember the GG's unranked coming from Starstruck. So, how can we make free-for-all tournaments fix these issues? Well, the thought is double elimination, but there's some problems with double elimination and free-for-alls. The first is that bracket resets are a nightmare, logistically. This means that you can get finals with 7 players. We're not going to let that happen. It just doesn't work. People from the losers bracket would just have to get 13th, but a lot of players won't play for 13th. They want to win. Sign up, you play to win the game, right? Now, one thing that I did try to debut earlier this year was a tournament called Revolution from the former MKEN server, or MKEN. Y'all may remember that. It was an attempt at another innovative second chance bracket, and it was ruined because, players left really early. It resulted in, a 4-player final for the people that went 0-2 up to that point. However, I think you can, potentially fix this second issue. Now the question is, what if 13th place was valuable? Well, in a free-for-all, this is worth, or like in a circuit-like setting, this is something that you can actually consider. Now, in every, central rank free-for-all, a traditional FFA tournament would still happen with a winner. Ideally, you want to, put cash prizes on the line to incentivize, people signing up and making it feel special. And final results would be recorded, and every player will receive an event score based on placement, like I mentioned. Placement score is pretty much there for the circuit to incentivize players to not sandbag when eliminated from contention. And here's the other thing. Losers will not be eliminated, but instead, sent to a loser's bracket. They will no longer be in contention for first place in that loser's bracket, but they could place up to 13th. Now, 13th place will yield a very solid points return in a circuit setting, right? In this instance, 13th is not a disappointment, but a salvage and a massive improvement over something like 97th. And this secondary bracket will make it twice as difficult for top players to also get poor placements due to bad RNG, while giving every player in the tournament at least 16 races, which would be double, and bumping the amount of people advancing in some form from 50% to 75%. Just to clarify, this isn't a confirmed thing that will happen, but just a proposal. Yes, I need to get feedback on this, but I would really much like to do it. Now, it is worth mentioning, where's the money coming from? Well, a lot of money is actually getting put into events already in free-for-all tournaments. It will be a community effort to, get a lot of people together to, talk about, really committing to making these events, a really great thing. How long would tournaments last? I think they would be daily, I think they'd be one-day tournaments, but it would depend on, just how big. Why not give the losers bracket a chance to win? That would mainly be done because bracket resets can't really fairly be done here because it's you can't eliminate all people at once. I don't think that a 7-player final is the ideal. What you do, yeah, thanks, Artie. You don't want to have finals that are 7 players because at that point you're not getting a final that's playing the same metagame, right? So I think you can't really play for 13th in a lot of instances, right? But if you do it in a circuit, you can still make 13th in other places below valuable, while also simultaneously making it harder to lose and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I mean, MKC does have money on hand. We're not going to spend it recklessly or anything like that, but it will be something to consider. And I do think that the entry fees are kind of bad right now for LAN or online tournaments, not LAN tournaments. They're good for LAN tournaments. Losers just need more matches or something. Absolutely. Anyways, this double elimination type of format would give, double the matches, and more people would get to sense progression because top 75 would advance in some way. In summary, second chance bracket simultaneously helps new players by providing them more opportunities, while allowing top players to, not get screwed by bad RNG in an 8-race format as badly. In my opinion, this should have been the standard years ago. Now, I like each free-for-all to additionally auto-host an optional single elimination tournament for players that go 0-2. If you have 192 people, 48 people could, do another bracket, right? It's even more for them. This gives players, the choice to play more games if they want to play with people around their skill level, and maybe there could be some kind of incentive, right? Doesn't this also just increase waiting time, though? No, we could definitely program it, I think, to be, I mean, a lot of these brackets wouldn't be contingent on the others as well. So maybe it would be slightly longer, but not enough that would be not worth trying, I think. Yeah. You could always try 2-day events also, like some of the summits if it's big enough, but we'll see there. We'll see when we get there, right? This is another FFA idea for, the newcomers and all that kind of stuff. I don't know if I like this a ton, but, maybe for more casual friendly tournaments and all that, where, a round 1 is more of a placement thing, right? But I could also see a lot of players, I think you'd have to seed this, so, a lot of the top players don't, just friendly fire and all that kind of stuff, right? But yeah, this is just another idea, right? Reminder, the more games that you give people a competition around their level, the more likely they will play another one or recommend it to a friend. That's why I think MKU's been successful, because people tend to play, around their level, right? And I think this would have a snowball effect, because the more entry-level players that give these tournaments a shot, the better they'll all do on average. Anyways, talking about Mogies. Now, it's really hard to make a good ranking system that takes Mogi tournaments into account. And, Lounge kind of circumvents this by increasing MMR output when playing with weaker allies, right? Additionally, Lounge limits, who can play together, creating closer rooms as well. I'll get to the point when I get to the point, sir. This is important. Anyways, actual tournaments are, scored by placements, not a continuous rating cycle, so that makes Mogi's a little bit difficult in this idea. So, Mogi's in a circuit would incentivize always seeking out the strongest partner possible, and I think that has negative consequences. Now, if you were to try to automate partner selection, that would be kind of awkward for smaller formats. But if finding the best possible partners incentivized so heavily, results start to become, about, partnering up with the best players, which essentially becomes more about recruitment over personal ability. Now, I think we like, partner tournaments more because the better teams tend to win more. But these results wouldn't say much. They wouldn't say as much about like as much as an FFA win, considering it's a solo player ranking. So if we like to find a player that's 90 skill and he teamed up with somebody that was 40 skill, they would probably lose to two 80 skill players. But the 90 skill player may be better. It's just he had a weaker partner. So the better team in this instance would still win, but the better player falls behind in these ranks, right? And that would not be ideal. And I don't think it's good to, punish the idea of playing with your friends in partner tournaments. And if you're going to look at individual scores and partners and all that kind of stuff, Casper, thanks for the raid. Appreciate it. We are talking to the future of the community. Alex, we're going to get rid of you if you're just complaining. You can watch on YouTube later if you want. The second you look at individual scores, the objective changes, right? We're not going to incentivize people throwing blues at their partners. That's not the solution. It never will be. Can we grade non-free-for-all tournaments, right? What makes this issue frustrating is that pure FFAs are not preferred in the community whatsoever. Now, team rankings have been historically imbalanced and uninteresting, I'd say. We've had a little bit of consistency and all that. And, doing like Mogi rankings would be maybe weird in comparison because then you'd have to have the same partners over and over. I think it's easiest, just have like a best player crowns, right? Anyways, the Lounge shows that 2v2 is more popular, and 66 is definitely more popular in the West, and for good reason. I made a video about this on the past, kind of about building a metagame around RNG. Building a metagame around RNG, a lot of times this is why we've played teams in the past, because as a result, one person getting unlucky doesn't tank a team's race. But if we really want to think out, like if we really want to grade non-free-for-alls, we're going to have to think a little bit outside the box. So now let's talk about Clan Wars. So 6v6 is widely seen as the most skill-oriented format. I know a lot of people like their Mogis better, and I don't blame you, because a lot of times you want to just have it fall on your shoulders, right? But I think we all like playing 6v6, and MKU really demonstrates that. But grading it for the individual player and a central ranking for single players is kind of a nightmare. So grading on individual scores is even more of a mess here than in 2v2. Shout out to my guy Cudge. You all remember when he was bagging and just making everybody mauled. He has won some wars before scoring under 40, so you can never go to individual scores. We all know this. But anyways, even if we had an algorithm for value provided in 6v6, grading tournament performance by player, watching what they did and all that kind of stuff, that's a decade away and not going to happen. Let's be realistic here. Because we don't really have the technology to implement such a system. It'd require a bunch of modding. What about not grading players but teams? Yeah, I mean, we've done teams grading in the past, actually, and it kind of fell out of popularity very quickly because, a lot of it really did have repeated results and all of that, and not a lot of people felt it started to feel exclusive after a while, with only 25 teams of 150 or so. Anyways, let's reiterate 66's hurdle to become an eSports. Now, I talked about this in one of the other videos in that same series I talked about on the other page, but I think we really have to be careful about how we ever introduce money into team tournaments, right? Very quickly, you can end up in a system that benefits the wealthy teams only, where they just don't lose. And it can become a formality to crown only one champion over and over again. We saw that with World Friend Star. This happens in our community naturally, without money added to the equation to begin with. And there's nothing wrong with the best team winning a tournament. That's a good thing, as mentioned. You want the game to be competitive, right? However, repeated results are not going to do anything for our long-term outlook for the community. Let's just be realistic right here. Now, RK won today. I think everybody's super hyper and like kind of excited because it was a good story and all that kind of stuff. But realistically speaking, we want there to be variance over time, right? If we have that variance, we're like, oh my god, it's a new champion. Oh my god, this match is really close. It's game 3 and it is tied going into the last race. We want more of that, realistically. But you can't just tell people, oh, you're too powerful, right? That's ridiculous. You can't just break up friendships on MKU for no reason. MKU should stay as it is because, well, it's good for the casual community and it's also great for, top teams that just enjoy each other's company. Now, the thing I do want to mention is you can come up with ways to make 6v6 tournaments. You can create more intense 6v6 competitions without, making it more luck-oriented or just telling people who they're going to play for in MKU one season. But we want to think outside of the lens of MKU here. So we've talked about, individual scores and all of that and like indivs and how we can't really grade performance on a play-by-play basis. This leaves us with one real objective indicator of excellence in the 6v6 game, and that is winning. However, winning can be misleading to work with. There are plenty of wars where a player can be on the winning team and have a minimal effect on winning, namely over, like a replacement level player on the same team. So what does this mean? Well, it means that the only time you can really accurately measure a player's ability to create wins for their team is when the matches are very close. And when this is true, everyone's margin of error decreases and individual actions carry significantly more weight. Now, I've been in a few HG wars where we play a lower division opponent, and quite frankly, whatever I do doesn't really matter because my 5 teammates are all really good and they're just going to win. And we don't want it to be like that because we want all of our, we want all of the actions on our team to, matter in the end. And you cannot win a 6v6 without all 6 players contributing in close matches. All right. Gonna ask the question, guys. Yeah, hydrate again, actually. Have we ever tried to run a tournament designed to generate closer matches? What do we got? Do we all know? Maybe. I'm guessing there's some delay and all that kind of stuff. See what we got. Mogi, crickets, nobody knows. That was a question. It's the one at the bottom. It is not compass draw. Closer matches, divisions, yeah. See Teeples, TV, UML. UML starting to come in. Velocity, MKU, LMAO. MKU kind of, right? Because, we want, the teams to, get, put into divisions and all that. Those who are saying UML are actually the correct answer. Summer Arcadium was a good answer, not the one I was looking for. I was the teacher looking for the better answer. The Underground Mario Kart League. So I want to talk about this because it was not good in the past. And I think I know why. So let's talk about this. MKU is the closest that we repeatedly do, yes. So let's talk about UML. For all of you that don't know what UML is, it is something that we ran in the past, which was a draft league. Somebody pointed it out, right? We ran this, it had the goal of being close, right? UML banged, no one ever canned up, yeah. Yeah, MKU does generate close matches. However, UML was the one that tried to do it without divisions, right? So I see a lot of people are, looking like saying, "Oh, I really liked UML," but a lot of people, it wasn't really the same sentiment, right? So here's the thing with UML. There is a lot of captain imbalance every cycle because people signed up to be captains, and realistically speaking, not all the captains are going to be of equal value, right? That's no offense to some of the captains, but some captains end up being top tier players, some don't be, and that creates a little bit of an issue. Now the snake draft, where like the worst captain gets to pick first, that was thought to be the solution, right? However, it's not really a solution because what it means is that the best captain gets to pick their second player first. And while I'll just explain in the next slide how that, kind of adds up really quickly. Now, the other thing about UML is it's a lot of people's first tournament. Players have no idea what they're doing every cycle. They sign up, they don't know what they are. Like, they're in your chat and they don't know what's going on. And it's hard to find the right time to actually get those players opportunities. And usually they're, lower level than the rest of the team, right? Yeah, lack of synergy and activity as well makes UML so unfun. That's another good point, right? Now, many players have no idea what they're doing every cycle. Yeah, I talked about that. So anyway, as such, if you get in a situation, top picks usually can't play in wars in a more natural way because they have to front run in this instance because everybody else on their team isn't going to be as sufficient at it as opposed to getting shocks where they're just naturally in the back anyway. It makes for an unnatural game a little bit. Now, motivation's hard to come by when you're just playing just cause. That's been the case for every UML. It's easy to give up. One demotivated top pick can make teams effectively unable to compete. This often happens because players rarely end up on a team with a friend or they feel like they don't fit maybe. But anyways, I'm going to blame the snake draft system on this. Everybody's that played fantasy football with me knows what's coming up next. Try not to spoil. All right, the snake draft. I drew a snake if you all want to see it right there. You see? Pretty snake, right? So this is how it works on the top right. The weakest captain gets pick number 1, but they also get pick number 20. And that's the thing about it. So what you're seeing here is, I don't know if you guys can see my mouse. The best captain right here gets player 10 and player 11. This means that this team down here likely has 3 stronger players than So this first pick is the only player that is going to be able to stack up against these 3 players, right? You're not getting muted, don't worry. Pretty much what this means is that there can be some very bad imbalance early that pretty much tanks all sort of balance to begin with. Now, the snake draft system actually works quite well for things like fantasy MKU, or even deciding teams back in the days of Lounge 6v6. Sorry to all my Secret X buddies who are still very upset about that being taken away. Anyways, this creates a lot of subtle problems specifically for a community like ours in the context of UML. Funny you mentioned that, Bryce. Pretty sure I told you not to, mention anything about our fantasy football, but that's okay. Anyway, problem with snake drafts. There's a snake. Snake drafts only take one opinion into account per pick, even if that opinion is not shared across the board. So when adding language barriers to the mix, this creates frequent situations where certain players will be valued differently by different teams, and this can often destroy competitive balance in the first round. Right? Very early on. So if the best player in the draft isn't someone that fits what the captain picking first wants, well, that creates situations that happen every draft where, a better player falls, and then the captain with the better player that gets drafted late gets to pick their next player sooner. This is a fast track toward destroying competitive balance before the tournament even begins, which again can demotivate all the players who know their team's in a rough spot. The other thing is snake drafts also, they consider all picks to be descending linear value. I'll explain that in a second. Consider this example. Let's say you got a German player. You all can name a German player in the chat. We'll pretend that he's picking first. Consider this situation. He lands the number 1 pick. The best 5 players in this hypothetical draft are all French players. As we all know, France is absolutely... see the German players coming in. The best players in this community, a lot of them are French. We just saw in the MKU finals. We see it every MKU finals, World Cup. It's kind of reality, right? Now, here's the thing. This German captain will pick after the other captains round 2. So in round 1, he will either select a player that maybe doesn't speak a common language with him, or he will, overdraft and pick a weaker player with the highest possible draft capital. Right? Sometimes captains just really want to play with a certain player too and overdraft them. And I've heard from some players that they hope they are not drafted early because if you're a first round pick, you're expected to carry. So snake drafts also treat all draft picks equal. We're going to call that draft capital from here on out. So if there's a best 2 players in said draft system, this means that the snake system assumes that the second and third captain picks are equal. But if this may not always be the case, because if the top 2 players are head and shoulders above the rest, this means that the player picking second gets a large advantage. Right? We'll get to that. We'll get to it in a little bit, Danny, about captain synergy and all of that stuff. But anyways, I have a different proposal to improve a league similar to UML. A better UML, if you will. And this, like Tatum rudely spoiled, is the auction draft. So rather than taking turn selecting, in an auction system, there'd be a bot. Captains would be able to bid on every single player. So what this means is that no longer is a worry about missing out on a player or getting a pick stolen right before you get your turn to pick. So every captain has a set amount of capital that they can bid on each player. It is their responsibility to use it to select the best possible roster, right? This would be a very dramatic stream, I'm not going to lie. I think people would like that. Wouldn't even cost 10 MMR. I don't know about that jewelry. But yeah. I mean, it's similar in concept, T. All right. When a player is nominated, like it goes through the order, captains nominate players, that doesn't mean they get them. Captains can then bid on the player. And the higher they bid on the player, the less capital they will have to select the rest of their roster with. One captain will never decide the value of a pick. This idea of the market does, right? So capitalism coming to MK8, yes, sure. No, this is actually the opposite of capitalism. MKU is capitalism, where the best have everything, right? This is strictly MKU communism right here, if you will. But anyways, let's consider the German captain again. In this system, if they decide they don't want to pick one of the top, French players in the draft, they don't have to pick them. But this means if their desired top player is someone that isn't worth the number one pick, they will actually get more capital to work with to get the rest of their roster and not have to spend the maximum pick on them. So what this means is that proper team building would be significantly easier in this system than traditional UML. This is because, if you want to pick a friend or somebody that, speaks the same language as you, you will not have to, spend whatever your pick dictates you must spend on them. This means that the idea of overdrafting takes a huge blow as well, because if everyone wants a certain player, they're going to have to pay for them. Not literally, but they're going to have to spend more draft capital on them. And if someone slides under the radar, you won't have to give up everything for them. Again, yeah, they could be coins, right, T? How do we decide what's worth what? We'll get to that. If there are two obvious best players, they could go for like 50 or 48 coins, while the third best player may go for 41. This means that the captain that picks third would not actually get screwed over by having to draft third. They would actually get, whatever the player is actually valued at instead of just third pick, right? This is also possible wins. Just you're going to have to actually, get intelligent captains, which could be difficult, but we'll see. But yeah. So implications of the auction draft. So pretty much in summary, each player will get nominated and captains will bid. Their value will be determined by what the highest bidding captain is willing to pay for them. So what this means is that people who want to play together in the system are more likely to play together because your friends will be more valuable to you than, people that may not be, buddies of people, right? So you don't have to watch your best friend get selected by somebody else if you're a captain, right? You can challenge them and say that they're worth more to you. And if you are willing to bid high enough, the other captain will eventually, give up on taking them. And I think you have to go in the mindset, you have to go in with the mindset that you cannot expect to get everybody you want. But you will be able to get the types of players that you do want more often than not. Now, the good part about this compared to UML that's going to destroy some friendships. MK's supposed to destroy friendships, Jack. Let's be real here. Anyway, teams may actually start to resemble instant teams rather than randomly assorted nonsense if, you can actually draft and overbid on perhaps people that you want more, right? So the other thing is that teams that mainly speak specific languages that aren't super common may not get punished nearly as much for selecting players based on language spoken. Because, if like the best player from like the language that, a certain captain speaks is like not like worth like everything, you can still bid and get them while still having a solid amount. You don't have to worry about picking them early, right? So yeah. Anyways, this would ensure nearly guaranteed better balance than every UML attempt up to this point as well, because you don't have to worry about the draft system having natural hiccups that we've seen in current UMLs. So the value of draft selections will also be flexible and non-linear, 50, 48, maybe 41 for the third player instead of 46, right? So What this means is that the best teams are going to be the ones whose players were undervalued or underrated, right? If you think you are underrated, this would be your opportunity to prove that it is your time to shine. If you think that you have been disrespected by the captains that don't think that you're all that, you could play your way into this and prove them wrong. Because if you get selected at low value, that means that the rest of your team, there's more value to be spent on better players. So if you go under the radar, your team will start to win more. All right, guys. I know a lot of you guys like Mario and Luigi, right? This is my proposal for the name. I don't want to name it Underground Mario Kart League. We want this to be something new and exciting and fun and outside from the underground. So, what better idea, right? Name to be determined, but the people I've talked to have liked it so far. But y'all can let me know if you have, this is the real important stuff, the name of a tournament, right? All right, goals of said Sky League. Now, this would be an evolution of UML. With focus on fixing UML's problems, creating a 6v6 competition with extreme parity. What parity is essentially equality in a sense, where the matches are specifically designed to be very close and intense. Of course, this would run using an auction draft over snake draft for all the reasons that we just talked about. Now, this would radically spice up the future of 6v6 competitions on days outside the MKU days, and introduce, in my opinion, 6v6 in a setting compatible with the world of esports. And I'll get more into that in a little. When I talk about esports, I talk about introducing money into 6v6 tournaments. Precisely, Nate. So, this would also attempt to solve the underrated problems of how the MK community operates by doing the following. This would, A, incentivize player improvement and incentivize helping others. Make improvement something that is easier to understand. Increase each player's social bubble and make the community friendlier at large. Make winning 6v6 feel more accessible to more people without sacrificing the integrity of competition. And very important, create storylines, intense matches, and a reason to want to spectate. Why a 6 versus 6 league in a solo circuit? Well, it is generally agreed that 6v6 skills are critical to evaluate when determining who the best players are. It's an entirely different metagame. And having ranking implications gives players a reason to care about the results that their team gets, and to never give up when a season starts poorly. So, when players care about something, we can use that to incentivize the things that we want. And this includes things like competitive competitions or changing community behavioral standards. And I think this is a very important point. So let's start talking about how we'd set this tournament up and the potential benefits. Entrance to the tournament would be earned. Player lists for competitions will be based on current rankings in the circuit. So what this means is that the top X players at the time would get the invite, and it would be on them to opt in or opt out. So if a player has a preference for one or the other format may also act as a way to motivate them to try out the other. Of course, players must opt in. Entrance can actually be a goal that we can make easier than advancing in a TCR FFA if we really want to do multiple divisions or something like that. This would, create more incentives to improve because, maybe a player really just wants to get into the Sky League or something like that. And if there are ties near the bottom of the rank, the cutoff point, we can make the auto-hosted single limbs for, the O2 players and FFAs factor in. So let's talk entrance is earned. We can make entrance not be too difficult. It just depends on how many divisions you want to run. So let's talk about divisions. Divisions can be a valid way of keeping competitions manageable and make every player on a roster capable of competing where they are playing, much like in MKU. This can be done in a way that strictly incentivizes player improvement, and divisions would consist of about 140 to 160 players. D1 Sky, yeah. Maybe 128 eventually if it becomes try-hard enough, right? But yeah, there'd be a Division 1. Maybe that's called the Sky League. Maybe it's just called Division 1, yeah. But yeah, interest is earned, but open to everybody who wants to try. So you all have probably heard me complain about divisions before at one point. Run alongside MKU, that would be the goal. The way that you overcome the language gap, again, is through the auction system, where you're specifically able to bid on players that suit your skills more, right? Anyways, I typically dislike the idea of divisions when they're matched with subjective criteria or reward, complacency, right? This would be, we think we should be this division, right? and all that kind of stuff. And then you have your MKU argument threads and players thinking that they should be Division 1 and probably having like a claim that's valid to get there. And I want to mention that I do think divisions have their uses. Now, one of the reasons why UML was hard for players to take seriously in the past was quite frankly that some teams had players that didn't really know what was happening. So if you do entrance through the central rank, that ensures that in Division 1, for instance, that players have some level of understanding of the system, and those that don't would get introduced to it through a more digestible concept such as solo tournaments. So, no T, MKU would be its separate own thriving thing. Divisions would allow for more natural balanced 6v6 gameplay, where top level players could still bag when necessary without it being bad for their team per se as well. So I want to talk about another tournament that we ran in the past. If you guys remember, we ran a tournament called MKPL a while back ago. It was an affiliate tournament ran by Pucka, I think. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. I'm very sorry if I mispronounced it. She's still around, I know. Does like the New York lands and all that stuff. But it was one of the it was one of the more recent 6v6 prize tournaments, probably the most recent one. And there were 32 teams with an amateur bracket, amateur bracket and premier bracket, right? Both brackets got a prize. And you guys can probably understand what the problem with this is, right? Yes, the premier bracket rightfully got a bigger prize, but this prize was inaccessible to a lot of teams. The amateur bracket, however, wasn't, right? This is the classic 6v6 roadblock, I think, because you frequently choose between inaccessible prize pools or in winning to the majority, or an approach that can incentivize sandbagging, right? If you're like the 13th best team, why place 13th when you can play 17th and, you know, get like a small like $5, $10 prize or something like that, right? That's problematic. But with this kind of idea, the Sky League, I believe that this could actually be the perfect scenario to use such a system and introduce, you know, money into the 6v6 game. Now, one of the cool parts about this is that it works seamlessly with Sky League, and this is because Division 2 or 3 can have a prize pool too that would not encourage sandbagging in any way whatsoever, as long as D1 continues to get the biggest prize. This is because with the draft system, regardless of what team or division you land on, you will have roughly the same odds of winning. I recommend 16 divisions, by the way. So if you want the most amount for winning, if you want all the accolades, there is essentially no reason to not grind for Division 1. There's no reason to sandbag whatsoever. If you want to, you know, get the maximum payouts, you want to work your way up. But it can still be something that is a meaningful victory for the players that are not in Division 1. So, yeah, there's always a goal to be had, pretty much. Also worth mentioning, every single player in this tournament, regardless of division, would have a legitimate chance of winning something. More players than ever before would have a shot at becoming a tournament champion without sacrificing competitive integrity. This would take the playing pool of, you know, potential champions from what I would say is less than maybe 50 players on like the main rosters, and this would put it kind of close to the 250 mark. This would provide potentially a lot of reason for any higher level player to believe that, you know, they can be a part of a championship winning roster without it just making the game more luck based or stupid or something like that. It would simply be a way where players can still play with some of their friends, but it would act in a sense as a way to you know, balance a league out, so winning becomes more accessible to more people while still having heated and intense close competitions. Yeah, I don't know about 1.2 million cash reward for the next one. All right, how to win. In a tournament where every team is constructed with the same draft capital, losing should never be a personnel issue. And what I mean by that is each team will always have enough talent to be capable of winning a tournament. So teams are expected to be roughly equal at the beginning because of how they're selected. This means that the team that does win will play better than expected. And this could be for two reasons. One, the community undervalued the players on the winning team in the draft. Talked about the whole underrated thing in the past. Secondly, the team may have actually properly been valued at the time of the draft, but improved and or worked well together at a rate better than the other teams. So the takeaway from this is that if you are the 4th or 5th or even 7th best player that worked their way into the main lineup, if you're not like the best player on the roster or anything, you getting a little bit better, learning that shortcut, watching the tutorial, working with other players. You could be the difference between, a championship and not winning at all. And I think that is kind of a powerful idea because I think this would be a way to make winning and feeling like you did something more accessible than ever before. You could be the champions of the world, right? The Division 1 champion in a sense. And it wouldn't just be, like an exclusive club per se. And of course, the goal is to still run it alongside MKU so everybody can, have their friend groups and all of that they still play with. And of course, MKU would be more year round. This would probably be a seasonal thing per se. But regardless of why a team wins in this kind of situation, I think it's likely for all the right reasons. Because wins are going to feel very meaningful as well, and players are going to often do it just to improve. Thank you for the hydrate. I kind of needed that right now. Glad my water bottle was filled. I did not actually pay attention for the stream. All right, we're almost done, everyone. All right. So how do you do better than expected? Well, it's the little things, right? If everybody's still kind of on the same playing field, right? The little things start to matter a lot more because, like I said, learning that shortcut or something like that, that could be the difference, right? Between winning a match and losing if the teams are roughly even. So here are a few common ideas that would likely lead to success, in my opinion. And many of these concepts may be, the X factor in close matches. First would be, if your team can communicate well together, build some synergy, that would be very helpful. Good rapport, making friends will lead to, more effort being made by individual players, having trust in each other and all of that. I would say that this requires, a good and supportive environment. Toxic behavior likely will punish players that are toxic with undesirable results because their players are not going to be motivated to play with them. And as a result, it means that those players will lose and get a worse placement score than they otherwise would on their TCR score for the event. Power of friendship. Yes. You'd also want to get the most out of every player by teaching and mentoring when necessary. And individuals putting in the work to improve and earn a spot in the lineup, that would probably be more of a thing for sure here. If every team, it's because the players are on the lower ends of the roster are not going to be that far apart in skill level. So those who want it more, I think likely can prove that they earned that spot, right? Got to keep pushing each other. You have to find reasons to want more and all that kind of stuff. That isn't just MMR, guys. But anyways, if every team does these things, then it is true that it doesn't guarantee you anything whatsoever. However, those who neglect good practices will likely be the ones that are left in the dust. And I believe that motivation would be at an all-time high because more people will realize that they have a shot to win the biggest, tournament in TCR, right? No longer would marginal improvement feel marginal because learning something new would be, making the difference, perhaps. All right, let's talk about mentoring. So I know a lot of people have, hey Felix, what's up? But anyway, mentoring. To win this tournament, helping other players would likely be required because in this event, taking natural skill for granted is not going to lead in success. So this would mean that, your higher level players on the teams would now have a direct reason to want to help mentor the weaker players on the roster because they would be teammates and need to get the best out of them in order to win and improve their own personal results. This would be no cash required. This would be, no cash required, no Medify. No, it's just a direct incentive because it affects you, right? And over time, this will raise the overall level of competition, I think, and get players in the habit of socializing and passing tips to other players. This, in my opinion, inevitably pushes the metagame forward. Felix, that is a great... Are the captains choosing... Yeah, that could potentially affect the league, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit, Felix. Anyways, up to this point in time, I'd say that we've seen ego really have a negative effect on the community and all that. And I don't think ego is ever going to be a good thing, but we could at least manipulate ego for our own gain in some instances, rather than, never, if we get creative. So just a reminder, this would be a TCR event, and what this means is that every player needs a score for the tournament. So just like for a free-for-all, you would get a score. But surely not every player on their winning team is going to play an equal part in a result. So my proposal is that player scores should be based on two factors. One is the capital spent to obtain that player, and the second is going to be result adjustment. Now, capital spent seems like a sketchy way to grade in any kind of system whatsoever because it's opinionated. But I would think of this more as like a base MMR that changes after every match that is played. Sometimes the market is wrong, and sometimes you want the market to correct itself. But luckily, if we do result adjustment, that is how, mistakes will be corrected. However, yeah, self-correcting system pretty much. So when undervalued players win, perception will change and correct itself, and if they remain undervalued even after winning, they will just keep winning until people realize that they are the reason why they keep winning. So every player's goal will inevitably become to keep proving that they're better than you think they are. So how do you maximize your score here? Well, in FFA it's pretty easy. You win the tournament. But in this, the way to maximize your Sky League score would be to be as drafted at as high of a value as possible and then still win anyway. So the road to winning is actually harder the higher your value is. But you should not care about that as a player. Because if you win, then it means that you were thought highly of and still not highly enough. And what this does is incentivize players to win with as little help as possible. And I think this works because of player ego. If you don't think that you need a super team, well, prove it, and you can have that dog in your veins. The only limit I think that we should apply to this would be to, allow players in the top X or something to decline the option of being drafted on a team with another player in the top 8. Because, if the goal is to become the best player in the world, then you shouldn't be forced to play with the best player in the world if you have a legitimate stake at it. Thanks, Felix. False! That is the correct answer, right? But yeah, anyways, you want that dog in you. I've addressed a lot of things that I think would be beneficial to community mentality, but of course this would also be done taking into account entertainment value in the future. Well, the SET, yeah, I don't know about that, Shaman. Anyways, FFAs I think are fine for content and usually provide an interesting result, but I believe team competitions are naturally easier to get behind as a spectator. So I think that, team matches would be good for us to, kind of get into. We just saw, 350 people watching RK and our stream beat BRE in the finals. RK, they had a 2,000 person stream, right? It was a big deal, right? World Cup always got a bunch of viewership in the past, and I think this is likely because many spectators quickly had like a team to root for. I think you want to try to make people fans of certain teams, right? Conversely, I think players, can make certain people like root for a team, right? And sometimes liking a team can make you like certain players, and it's like kind of like a self-correcting. Yeah, there were 2,000 people on an RK stream, right? Felix, we can stop quizzing people, right? All right. I don't know how many of the Europeans are still awake right now. I saw us talking about earlier, right? We want our players to be interesting, right? That's like how we're going to, get the crowds that actually care, right? We want to have a system where, there's doubt sometimes, because when they do overcome, then it'll be the best moments, right? So I think we want to have, interesting top players as well. Even in team sports, I think you can focus really heavily on certain players, right? Got Jimmy Buckets, Mr. Tatum up there, is in the chat. But they advertise their players at times and get people to want to tune in. So I think when you're running like a team tournament and stuff like this, you want to have players kind of be a focus, right? This can be this person's team versus this person's team and all of that, right? So this is the goal again, to becoming like the best player you can possibly be. If you want to be the best player, you kind of in a sense got to step up as a leader on your team, right? But yeah, in order for this all to work, there has to be something to play for, and I think in this instance, it all comes back to the idea of player ego and ranking, because you want to get the maximum value because you want to prove that you're the best. And this could be the way to, make it so 6v6 is involved in direct player ranking. So, yeah, there's a direct reason, again, for people to want to face off rather than teaming up, and this is to be the, top player of the year. Of course, when you're marketing for a top player of the year, every match has a storyline built in and of itself. And, the Sky League is going to be ideally pretty close tournament also, where you're going to be potentially rooting for certain players to win at all times. Dang, that's tough. That's tough, Joel. You want to be the Alex Caruso of MKC, yeah. All right, more interesting streams. There needs to be a reason for. I promise you all, we're almost done. Thank you all for sticking around. I didn't expect, there's a lot of, like, we stayed over 300 for a lot of this. We're only now starting to drop off a really long time in, so I appreciate you guys sticking it through and, considering this. I appreciate it. But anyways, there needs to be a reason for people to care, and I think there could be. Sky League matches, I think, would be incredibly unpredictable to the public since the playing field would be very even. I know, like, last season when we played BRE in the finals, the prediction stream was like 92% to 8. I know it was still pretty lopsided this time. Obviously, RK proved everybody wrong, but, I think you would want to have, like, you want the matches to feel 50-50 a lot, right? As long as captains do their job, yes. We have to be very careful about who we select as captains also. Anyways, I think unpredictability is a big thing. Players may feel more connected to a tournament that they participate in as well. There's likely a higher chance that your buddy will be featured on a Sky League cast as well because, you're not all going to be in the same team, right? So you're probably going to have some certain preferences on who wins what match based on, who's over there and all that. And also, teams will be shuffled more frequently here. There should be very little fatigue over, particular teams and players on a cast, and this makes for new opportunities for new players and all that. Snarl News, thank you. All right. All right. If you couldn't tell, this whole idea is pretty much centered around creating a fake market. That models the salary cap, right? That is everything that's been talked about. There's no money in this whatsoever, only in prizes. That would be like community funded, right? Yes. What Win said pretty much is the key. You want captains to not be stupid and players to sign up and care. That will be everything in making this work. It requires a lot of trust. Anyways. Maybe Lev. I think offline competitions can definitely happen, but I don't think it'd be this. This is mainly for an online focused community, this thing. But hey, we're still on the up and up with LANs also, so keep that in mind as well. Join USMK if you haven't already. All right. I'm starting to lose my voice, so I think we're going to call it soon, but luckily we're almost done. Anyways, we cannot make a real world cap here because we don't have that kind of funding, right? And the concept here is pretty much glued together by pride and ego as substitutes for cash. It is unfortunate that this may be the only way to do it, yes. But it may be the way to operate for a while because if there's one thing in full supply in the community, it might just be player ego and wanting to prove that you're better than other players. Considering it all, though, I believe that this would be a valid way to artificially create more intense competitions in 6v6. So you may have been asking, who the hell drafts these teams? And this is a very good question. We've eliminated captains from the equation from the beginning in the UML style because they create imbalance, right? But someone has to be bidding. My first thought is that we should try to take advantage of the popularity of MKU Fantasy. Maybe take a few proven people that have won in that context and understand, drafting and competency from the draft. I think that they should probably have to be approved just to ensure that we have, people that are not going to be, trolling or anything like that, because that would very quickly ruin, the competition if one captain wasn't taking it seriously. And those players could maybe, maybe there's like some kind of reward for like being the captain of like the winning team and all that, right? Essentially, I think you can make it kind of like fantasy, but the players actually play together, right? Yeah, you need to be dead serious about captains. Absolutely, right? Business meetings. But yeah. Also, I'd say that captains should be required to comply with their highest value picks, because only the highest value picks are going to be the players at the top of the rank, right? And you want those players to have a say in who they get to play with, right? And only they can really commentate on who they think they'd work with best. So there would also need to be a set of checks and balances to be established later between selector and star players, and that needs to be established. Now, this is a long shot, but this is a very fun idea. Now, if this idea takes off and garners outside interest, if we can create exciting streams as a result that people want to be a part of, here is what I think the next step is. So there have been occasions in the community where esports organizations have taken an interest in our teams. Notably Division 1 teams. I think a lot of people remember Bittersweet GG. Uh, this is not really happened successfully in the long term, and teams have often had conditions that players don't want to deal with. I know Arcadia was approached and just did not want to agree with terms and all of that. HD was approached once, and we didn't really want to change our name in history. And it's most likely that orgs would want to have top players repping them. So in my opinion, the Sky League would actually maybe be a perfect sell and compromise for all parties involved. Let's be clear here, like this is hypothetical and probably hopium, but it may be an interesting product in the future that could potentially even fund the tournament, if you think about it. These teams wouldn't really have a rich history that would need to be protected either, so team name changes wouldn't be a big deal. And each team would likely have a couple of star players that can, maybe sell, orgs on wanting to get involved and, want to win and all that. I honestly don't remember Tillicum on the org that we were approached by, but we did get like one org that wanted to talk to us a while back. But we didn't really want to, give up our history and all that kind of stuff. But anyways, organizations having control over teams would give a direct incentive to really try in a draft as well, because winning boosts brands. I mean, you never know with like what orgs would value and all that kind of stuff also, but one bad pick or one terrible pick for as far as winning goes would ensure that they wouldn't win as well. So yeah. But anyway, I want to reiterate that this is a bit of a long shot idea, but maybe it's something to think about. But anyway, that's the end of the spiel on 66 in a more parody-like system. Again, something that would potentially be, MKU off-season or run alongside it. That's for you all to decide if you guys like it and all of that. But anyway, let's wrap this up. So I talked about Arcadians and Summits. Hopefully you didn't forget that this was more about the 66 and all of that. But it's worth including here. So Arcadians are pretty much your typical tournaments with top X players on a ranking band. Pretty much it's a tournament focused on putting the spotlight on new faces. That's pretty much the big of it. There'd be an auction draft once per Sky League, yes. You could maybe talk about like having some repeat, like if it gets established ever, but I think that's another discussion for another time. This is very alpha phase and proposal-like. But anyways, next thing would be summits. I think this probably needs to be renamed because we have a summit series already. But this would be like Smash Summit. You have invitationals at the end of period, like the end of TCR periods and stuff. And that focus would be solely on the top cut of players. Perhaps it could be like the final event of a season, almost be like kind of a spectacle like War versus Japan in a sense, where it's still calculated and all that kind of stuff. Players can essentially play their way into it, and maybe this acts as like the last chance for movement at the top of the ranks. Summit details. So I don't want to gloss over the Arcadian idea, but I think they're a bit easier to understand. They're just normal FFAs, but focused on the newer players. My idea for these summits are simple. You get a full room of the top players and test them in different ways. It's kind of like the anti-Arcadian. Perhaps going through all the Mogi formats. This is what I'm thinking. You could have like an FFA 2v2 based on results and stuff. The teams would pair themselves and all of that. 3v3 might be harder to balance, but yeah. Anyway, we want to focus on this being a big stream event that like gets out like, oh hey, y'all, the best players in the world, they're all going to play against each other in like this thing. And I think that'd be potentially a good sell as well. All right, so we've reached the end where we're going to talk about the Summit Champion would not necessarily be the #1 TCR player T. I think it would be kind of like a final chance for movement, I would say, more than anything else, because I don't want to throw away the results and like let player number 12 just jump to #1 just like that, right? Will people truly believe it? I don't know. No harm in no harm in having an attempt, right? Here's the thing that I've noticed throughout the history. This is something that was very common in the MKW days, actually. There would be, players that win like a tournament or something, right? And if they aren't considered the best players in the world, and they get crowned the champions or like the best and all that kind of stuff, all it does is piss off the players that think that they're better, right? It almost lights a fire, right? So nice. You can see my T-shirt. Yep, 14-3 incoming, as you all know. But I think no, a lot of players that wouldn't want to do it, right? If they see, these players that are not them, get these accolades, get these rewards, and, get that title for the year and stuff, maybe that would change their mind. And if not, and they want to be a hard ass, well, that's just on them. We got to move on without them. Who cares, in my opinion? Yeah, I got the Bengals. No, in my next Super Bowl, they're the best team in the league, dude. Can't argue with me otherwise. Anyways, let's wrap up with the problems. This requires a lot of community trust. It requires a lot of faith and patience as well. Change is hard, and I think players angry with results might be quick to slander the idea, even if it isn't at fault. And it's likely that everybody overrates themselves as well. Specifically, it's really hard to understand why this idea might work so well until you've been part of the community for a while and understand, where we're at, what our issues are, and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I mean, I could definitely see that being the, I guess, where it falls apart. People not wanting to take it seriously and stuff. But, I mean, we'll see. It's up for everybody else to decide. Now, our community may not like the social aspect of this much because we're kind of like in our bubbles, as I mentioned already. And the way I think about it is if you're not willing to go outside that bubble and stuff, then I don't really want to, I don't really want to, focus on that. I think the future, like a better future, lies in, making things feel more open and all that. I think probably 5-12 with the Bears, maybe 4-13. Like they did nothing to make things better. I'm sorry, man. Hey, believers and doubters, Felix. It's always about that. Anyways, I think the reason why we did a slideshow today also is because I felt there was so much, prior explaining to understand why this stuff even would work, right? 8-9 trust. I mean, maybe the NFC, but I doubt it. Let's finish this. We can talk about NFL at the end, okay? Anyways, I think if the idea of talking to different people is unattractive to you, I think this goes to show that there is a weird divide in our community already where, people aren't comfortable talking to new players and all of that. And I don't think that is translatable into a future where, our top players are actually cared about, really. Because, if they're not open in personalities, like, the Mangoes, Armadas, Hungry Boxes, regardless of what you think about these players and stuff, they're interesting, right? If you're reserved and just off on your own and stuff and intimidating and all that kind of stuff, well, I just don't see how you kind of fit into a future where, more people want to care about what happens at the top level. I mean, this goes back to the whole idea of why aren't my clips getting as much as maybe it could, right? Now, I mean, some of you guys brought up the Bear tweet. It's like, oh, Bear's not the best player in the world, but he's interesting. He's been around the block. He's been around in the Evo scene, Melee, Ultimate, Smash 4 and stuff. I mean, we have to work to make ourselves interesting, right? And if we're, refusing to, open up a little bit or show a little bit about ourselves or, be opinionated on stuff, then I just don't see how that future is really going to get us anywhere that we're not already at. And maybe that's okay for some people. Maybe they like the way things are. But as somebody, who's been around for a bit, I'm personally tired of it. I understand that not everybody else is, but for me, I'm kind of thinking I want to try and move on, do something new. We can still do the old, but I want a new challenge, and if nobody else wants it, well, maybe this is kind of the end of the road for me. People are going to come and go as, time passes. New people are going to replace the old and all that kind of stuff. We'll see what happens. Anyways, one of the other issues I think is that the level of competition in Sky League would still likely be lower than in MKU D1 finals match. This is because it would be kind of spreading the wealth in a sense, making players want to beat each other instead of, teaming up. So we wouldn't see that MK Worlds level talent on the Sky League matches, but we would see, closer matches, right? We would still, see MKU finals and MK Worlds, so I don't think it's a big deal at the end of the day. Now, the other issue is difficulty in coming up with an accurate grading system. Now, these numbers would be arbitrary and require a lot of testing to ensure that it's properly rewarding the players with the best results. And, there's going to be ways to break the system as well. So we're going to have to, do those calculations and account for it, right? But yeah. Wrap up. All right, admittedly, this is an evolution of, older circuits and all that kind of stuff. Can you give me 5 minutes? All right. So this time I'd say that the big focus, again, is adding 60-60 to the equation and having more ways to make it more accessible to new players. I think that these changes are necessary. So ideally, you want to have prize pools and streams for all events to make them stand out. And if you want to put money into something, it better be engaging. That's another hurdle and all that. Complacency, in my opinion, that's kind of like opposite of growth, kind of the enemy. And I think it's just time for us to try something new, right? When do we see this starting? Maybe next year? I don't know. Depends on what people want. I'm not putting a date on it at all. I don't know if it'll happen yet. But anyways, I think it will work. Because if people, care so much about something like Lounge MMR, surely they can care about their yearly rank, right? Anyways, this is not going to fix all, the problems, right? But I think it could be a giant leap forward, and there's only one way to really find out. So it's hard to tell if we can't pull it off. I know Felix's team doubters, right? And while a lot of ideas here are based on manipulating the ego could of course be the undoing. And this system would be honest. And a lot of people don't like harsh truths. Now I could very easily see a timeline where this idea would be slandered. The second the results aren't what's expected, I believe it will happen. Somebody with a big ego is going to get beaten, and they're not going to like it, and they're going to say this is inaccurate and it's horrible and all that. And nope, that's going to happen, right? There's a natural resistance to change typically, and that kind of scares me. But again, this is why I think sharing 80 slides felt necessary, because I need some people to get why, right? I need some people to get why we would do this. So I need to share this perspective and why I believed in the idea. So I understand that the current system's enough for some people. Personally, like I mentioned, I'm over the cycle, but understand that many people still see it as fresh and new. A lot of people come into the community and really like, the idea of MKU and all that. A lot of people are lounge grinders and don't really feel the need for anything else. But this is why I wanted to develop something alongside the current system for those people, craving something a little bit more competitive, for those people, craving something new and innovative, and for those people that want better streams. I've always thought we could do something more interesting, and I think many people are looking for something to rekindle their competitive spirit. Now, I know it can work because every step of the way there are reasons and incentives that hold everything together, and this potential future kind of excites me to even think about. So, if you like the idea, let me know. You can shoot me a DM, thoughts, concerns, all of that. Love it, hate it, etc. That's on you guys. But at least for me, I know that I've now kind of shared what I think would be a good approach. I'll know at least I'm propose the option, and I think that's important to me because I just want to know. Because for me, I'm not sure how much longer I'll stick around doing all this as life continues to kind of progress and all of that. I'm excited for new opportunities, of course, in the real world and all that kind of stuff, getting the new jobs and all this. But yeah, this definitely been kind of on the mind for a while because I've been thinking I don't think our competitions are as interesting as they could be. And there are a few exceptions. And you could make the argument, right, that some of the exceptions are that much better when they do happen, right? You get those inflow type of runs in Amplify. You get France beating Japan in the World Cup. You get the 50-point comebacks for HD against JBZZ in the finals. You get, the RKs finally winning after so long. You get the World Friends winning after so long and then winning everything else. But these moments are so few and far between that I do want to come up with a way to make them more frequent. So I know a lot of you are telling me all what you think on this. I appreciate you all for sticking around. I can't believe that we still have 200 people on here listening to the very end because this definitely went over an hour and a half. But again, remember, new players are going to be what, pushes things forward. We want to make it easy for them, and we want, our current players to have something new and challenging and all of that. So yes, this has been on the mind. How do we make this a possibility that new players are looking for, and how do we make it so we have something new and exciting? So I hope this was interesting. I appreciate all of you. If anybody wants to stay around and chat for a little bit, I'm down. I'll answer questions about what has happened. I'll answer your Chicago Bears questions. Whatever you guys want, I'll give it probably till 7:15, 7:30. Am I available for office hours? Don't know about that. I mean, DMs probably will read. I'm in the office tomorrow, so I'm going to be focusing on that, but I'm going to try to get to y'all if you care and stuff. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Okay, what we got? Are we good? Yeah, Felix is the TA, so feel free to talk to him. Instant Team 00, who's in? Excited to see that a lot of you are hyped up by this idea. Appreciate you all. Yeah, the scariest part of any community is the growth of influence and all that. Yeah. I'll bid a lot for Pulse. Not if nobody else bids. He'll get the market value, and it'll probably go to you. I'm in. Some colon threes. Hey, one try league for TTs would be fun to watch also. Yeah, that reminds me also. I think that'd be cool also. Spike, this will go on YouTube eventually, right? We'll get to that in a little bit. I do think that we need to also really, we talked about improvement a lot today. I think we do need to set up a guide. I know the name Mario Kart University was floated in the MKC staff chat earlier. Sorry, Brandon, I spoiled. Jiden, thank you. I didn't see you typing a lot during it, but appreciate the listen. Rookie Direct, yep. What's the ceiling in 4 for the Philadelphia Eagles? The Eagles are that team that somehow, whenever a player is considered to be traded, all their fans are saying that they need him on that roster. And in my opinion, that's an acknowledgement that the roster is not Super Bowl worthy. I think that their ceiling is 11-6 or so, which would probably win the division, considering it's bad. I think the floor is actually a regress to about 6-11. How does this affect LeBron's legacy? None whatsoever. If anything, LeBron's affecting us by, the GOAT debates and all that kind of stuff. Thoughts on the Cowboys? They fell off a little bit. They should still be good. Their division's winnable because it sucks. But they lost more players than they gained, and I don't understand why Cowboys fans think that next season's going to be any better than this one, in my opinion. They're already out of their window. I think their window was kind of back in Romo's last season. But they played Dak all year. And Dak's pretty good, but I thought Romo was very good and underappreciated. I feel like that players that don't play shouldn't be rewarded that versus players who do. I don't know what you mean by that exactly. Thinking of running an MKT FFA circuit? I mean, you could watch how this operates. Surely you can make a 4v4 system. Probably just less capital for the teams and all that, with different rosters on them all. Thank you, Snortle, for hopping in. Appreciate that also. Trying to get to... I'm sorry if I missed some of you guys because, didn't read all of that. Foss and Drew Walk and his value. It would be a miracle if the Seahawks do anything, but... Actually, it wouldn't even be a miracle for them if they didn't have the number 1 pick. They need the number 1 pick. I think TCR should count for how many matches you play in Sky League. Maybe, but it's really hard to monitor that stuff because stuff can come up, Like maybe somebody's supposed to play the last match, but they just can't be around, right? Yeah, there's a crazy upset. Good for RK. I don't know if there'd be trades now. 100's a little bit much, right? Cindo, when I proposed this to the MKC staff, said that we should probably have a cap on just how much you can get a player for, right? But I think that you guys, I don't think that anybody would pay an absolutely absurd level for one player, because at a certain point you're going to realize that you literally cannot put a winning roster together if you spend 100 on one player. No player is that good. The player would have to be a hacker to be worth that much. We've already finished, Blaze. You'll have to watch the VOD, right? Interesting point from Vike. I mean, I know the NBA has max contracts and all of that, so you could do something similar, but yeah. Yeah, Mr. Bean League MVP. Yeah, I think the really interesting part here is the Sky League idea and, creating artificially balanced tournaments and all of that. And we tried that in UML in the past, and I think some people still liked UML, but I think it was a far cry from what it could have actually been. Right. Yeah, bidding, yeah, that would be kind of crazy. All right, I've seen a lot of DMs from all of you guys right now, so I appreciate that. I'll try to get to them later and respond. I respond to DMs if I don't get to one. Just remind me. I won't take offense to it. Obviously, if you DM me every day, it may be a little bit hard and all that kind of stuff because I do have my own projects and things I have to do. Is TCR something we have to commit to every week? That's a good question. You do not have to play any tournament. I think you should probably have to play 2 or 3 FFAs to be eligible for Sky League, maybe. I always kind of thought Sky League is an April thing, and 1 FFA per month up to that point. Maybe it could be 2 or 3 times a year thing, probably 2. Then, you know, you have like your summits in June and like a final one in December or something. The December could be like another event around the MK Worlds weekend and all of that. Really just like the best of the best facing off at the end of the year before holidays. That'd be kind of cool. As for like the Sky League itself, not every player's going to be able to play every match, so you do need to have some substitutes. I think that if like a star player is missing for a Sky League match, you need to kind of base it off of MMR, where if they don't have their top player, that the players playing won't get punished for it, and they'll actually lose less and gain more on their result adjustments if they don't have their best player. But we'll see. I still think, you know, the money factor, like the money incentive, right, to win would still make teams want to try their best to win. And that would probably mean that best lineups would still be there for most matches. Yeah, always feel free to remind me, guys. I appreciate it. But anyway, it was good to get this off my chest. Again, this has been on and off in my thoughts for 2 years because, you know, I mean, I watched 8U happen, and the, you know, Severance won MKU every season, pretty deservingly so. They were the best team and all that. But when we ran the solo circuits, right, you know, it was funny. It seemed like all the players in Severance felt they were the best player in Severance, and we never really had the discussion about who the best team was because it was kind of definitive. I know FA won one of the MKUs, XI, you know, had them pretty close a few times, but we always knew who the best team was in 8U, so that was never a discussion. We never could discuss it, right? Appreciate it. Thanks for coming out, guys. But, you know, the other thing with Severance, right, is like all those players seem to feel like they were the best in Severance, except maybe Soldier. Soldier's always just like like, oh no, I'm just another guy and stuff, even though he's like really good and stuff. Fairest price for the best player, probably like 60 out of like 200, probably something like that. I think 60 would be an insane value. 70, we'd have to do the calculations. That's why the MK8D staff, or formerly known as EOs, would need to be very helpful in all of this, I would say. We'd have to talk about it a lot. This is not something that you can just do tomorrow. What was I talking about? Oh, yeah. But the fun part about that solo circuit back in 2016 was that, you know, it was like approving, like, who's going to win it? Who's going to be the circuit champion, right? Who's the best, if you will? And that was the only definitive answer we ever got. And maybe people would argue, it's like, no, I don't think Xander's the best, but like, you know, he did get to win something, right? And I think, you know, winning something, I think you can still claim to be like the champion, right? The champion of like the year and all that kind of stuff. Ranked #1 player, right? I think that stuff's important. Anything else, y'all? Gonna get to my DMs in a second, if not. Guys, I appreciate you all for giving me the time. Now, thank you also, Invictus, for I'm going to turn my notification back on, actually. I think I still have the thing copied from earlier. Let's see if it finishes, my follows from earlier. I think we jumped 100 followers this stream, so thank you all for that. That was very unexpected, I guess. Going to turn my alert box back on, just since things are going to go back to normal. I think we go with the default sound, right? It's not letting me choose the default one. Where's the default sound? I can't find the default sound. Oh, this is a nightmare, dude. Are we getting follows at all? I don't know. We've been on the closing statement for a while now. I'm going to read off like the follower list, by the way. Just, you know, to thank everybody. Actually, let's just get it over here, I guess. Shout out to everybody else. You can all see that. I think the last one I mentioned was, I think, no, we did, okay. I think it's around, no, okay, I think, all right, Batboo, Tynan, Samurott, Lore, Pillow, I think, Raph, I'm sorry, I'm probably butchering a lot of these. Joswald, Nate BG, thank you for following right now. I guess I still have the sound, which is good. The Caesar, Manu, I think that's the tour player from Team Mexico. Shout out to you for winning the World Cup. Alex from my casting partner earlier. Dragneer, I think it's that, sorry. Harry Akedix, Laxine, Lackey, P. Camille? I'm not sure. Ephorial Catharsis. Long name there. Galley just now. Lee, you aren't even following me? Lee? Come on. Kakode, Dragonfly, XQX, Said2, Party, Maths, Jackie Formosa. That's Jack from the MKW community. Tenshi, Para. I just can't do these names, dude. I'm sorry. Paragira, I'm guessing. Dark Legend, RS. We got 2 follows from Dark Legend. I don't know if that's the same. Totodile. That's a crazy Twitch name. I'm surprised that you just got a straight up starter Pokemon. Perehon, I think that's the J sound. Huglu. You can correct me. I'm sorry. Thank you for the follow as well. Cloyster, like the Pokemon, I think. MK Aster. Jerry, I think. Maybe Gary. NICX. Nick X, maybe. Rolodev or Royodev. MK8 Daniel. Got some subs also. Thank you, Nero Lamas. Del Rey. Nope, I think that is. Benny Geeko? I don't know. Sliver with a rate of 562 is incredible. Once again, Sliver. It's good to look at us now, dude. Both of us have won had our teams win MKU. It's crazy. Congratulations to you, dude. MROMG Official. Zafra, BYK, Tortilla. My gosh, it's unending. Raimonis, Ivan, Ara. This one's so hard. Ivan, we're just going to go with that. Sharky FBT, By Xanax, V Martinez, Edram, Hugoman. I'm reading everything right now. TQXY7, Poulet87, Wolblast, Lum Irene, Ryukanu. I think that's a tour name. I'm not certain on that. I'm sorry if I messed that up. Royale Soul, Devil Joker. I don't know. I recognize Devil Joker. I think it's a South American player. Yago Pilo, XD. Groza, Yit, MK8D. The Miggler. Propius. Eros Con Pollo. Read it and weep. Cesar PA, Pierre 54, Gayak, I'm guessing Guyak maybe, Casperinos, another big raid, MKC, of course, thank you for the raid also, Steen, Melantoad, it's like melatonin almost. I don't know if that Steen is from earlier this week that I talked with. There was and Boho Joel. Following recently. Sorry, I didn't get to everybody like during the stream, but there's just so many. It was very crazy and overwhelming. That just like destroyed the stream and all of that right there. All right, we gotta find somebody to raid right now. Does anybody have any suggestions while we're hanging out and all that? The system's designed to encourage people to find value of players that are lesser known. That is true, yes. All right, let me catch up in all of this. Of course, we have the Discord as always, so you can join that. For the TCR thing, whatever it's called, can you get penalized for not? No, never. I was going to ask, actually, since I don't really entirely understand, would a player who is known more be worth more value than a player who is like really good at the game? The whole premise is about the market correcting itself. Those who are underrated will win more, and as a result, their result adjustment will be better. Totodile is correct. The system is designed to encourage people to find the value of players that are lesser known. Correct. It is entirely based on skill. Dude, I don't want to raid Donkey because he's not going to acknowledge me. Does Donkey acknowledge raids? 126 is pretty big. I want to talk to somebody else playing MK8D also. Oh, he's playing MK8D. All right, we're doing Donkey. We're doing Donkey. If he's doing a Mario Kart day, we got to hit him up. Dunk stream, the Rook stream to the Dunk stream. All right, guys, it's been real. Thank you for all the support. We got 100 follows today. That was kind of crazy. Maybe 1,000 by the end of the year is actually a legitimate goal now. All right, we'll try to do more in the future. Join the Discord. I'll post it after the raid. Appreciate you all. We'll see you next time. Thank you all. One last hydrate. Ending the stream.